All right, so we are jumping into the finals of the European Open Cup because it looks like it could be interesting. In the top left of Hard Lead, it is Team Liquid's Clem. On the bottom right, it is Team Basilisk's Reynor. Going for the 15 extractor trick. So normal now. Not even special. Yeah, I didn't cast any of the bracket leading up to this. I'm just jumping on in. Ignoring any rules. But Clem did 2-0 Lambo on his way here, as well as Wayne, so he is very much prepped for TvZ. Reynor defeated Gung Fu. Gung Fu actually defeated Max Pax to get to those semifinals. PvP can be wacky, and Gung Fu is actually a very talented player. He actually just comes back every now and again, basically around the time of regionals, plays a decent amount, then leaves. And he just bounces, and you don't see him again. Then he pops up again, and you're like, all right, well, you can't possibly be able to come back and play and go out and come back and play and actually be any good. No, he's usually able to get really good really fast. But anyway, PvZ is a very different beast, so Reynor was playing Zerg this entire time. No random for him, but his road here was full of ZVP, not ZVT. Obviously, when we say, like, oh, they're warmed up for it now, probably doesn't actually matter. As long as they're just generally warmed up, they don't have a problem transitioning to a different matchup in their head. But this is, for me, very interesting. Not because, well, you know, it's two amazing players, top of their fields and all that good stuff, battling it out in a classic matchup that everyone loves. That's all good, too. But also because Reynor really was hammering Clem before Katowice. Katowice actually was a very almost like experimental tournament for some reason. You know, Clem had been, he'd won Atlanta, he had that sick run in WTL, but then he was performing rather poorly in Open Cups for his standard, which means he wasn't winning the finals. He was getting to the finals, he was winning them. And one of those finals, or at least two of them, I think, actually, were against Reynor, and they didn't really look very good. Particularly one of those finals was very, very questionable. And then Reynor had kind of gone, like, super hardcore training mode leading up to Katowice after a disappointing Atlanta. But then we saw that even though he went into his hardcore training mode, that actually kind of failed him. He performed even worse at Katowice, which he was, you know, fairly upset about, understandably so. So, you know, both players obviously recovered. They might have even played last week. I was still in Europe, unable to cast. These guys live in Europe, so they probably already traveled back and probably did play in the Open Cup. I'm not sure what happened that day. I'm actually going to go back and check. So this is not them jet-lagged or anything like that. Last week, both of them did not play, actually. Yeah. Which, like I said, they maybe could have, but I don't know their schedule, obviously. I don't know what happened. But they didn't. So this is the first time that they're matching up again since that kind of weird period leading up to Katowice. And then they were unable to face each other in Katowice because Clem was the one that made it to the round of 12, and Reynor did not. So interesting stuff here. We're starting off with a very aggressive opener, or, well, possibly aggressive, I should say, actually. It's just a Roach Warren for now. Has yet to be scouted. I mean, Reynor should be going for the aggression, especially if this wasn't scouted, but now it is scouted. And now it's also a problem as far as the drone damage goes. Oh my god! That was the most unfortunate lineup I've ever seen from a professional gamer, actually. Like, Reynor almost would never let that happen. But those drones were like, you know what would be really good right now? If we got barbecued to death. It's like they wanted to die. 9 drones for a single Hellion and Reaper? Are you freaking kidding me? Nah, no way. No way. Reynor just probably shook his head at that, man. And the Roach one was scouted, so you know that roaches are a possibility. And unfortunately, a Banshee is a very solid counter to any type of Roach play. I mean, Reynor might have been wanting to do, you know, an attack that really blindsided Clem, in which case the Banshee might have been away, might have been going for harassment as opposed to staying at home. And that blindsiding might have worked, assuming that the Hellions also never scouted any of the Roaches. Or maybe Reynor was just going to use it to play into Roaches. But now I feel like is an even less, is on a less, how to say, like, Roaches just don't give me the comeback potentials, you know? Roaches and Infestors might. Ravagers and Infestors give me some comeback feels, but I feel like roaches are just so plain straight up. It's going to be very difficult for Reynor to play roaches as he is behind, trying desperately to recover, just pumping out drones. And the roaches, the very few that he did build, kind of do cover him alongside queens when it comes to defending Hellion Banshee harassment, but that's not much solace, honestly. Like, if he had 20 lings, I think he'd also be fine, or theoretically he'd be fine from future danger. It's all theories until you get punched in the face, right? And if he is going to play into roaches, we should have those evolution chambers. They literally now come down. I mean, there's no way that Reynor actually tries to go for like a 1-1 roach all in, right? That just seems like it especially wouldn't work. 2 Banshees still alive. Clem knows that roach is, as a playstyle, might be the goal here, so he's going to be producing tanks, not caught in that kind of weird automatic Widow Mine era that he once did. He used to always go into Widow Mines before really scouting. And he would get bopped by roaches. Doesn't do that anymore. Builds tanks. And actually further damage is being done, so... the queen dies. 8 drones in total, because I think I missed a Hellion run by as well. The Banshees are still alive, which means they add in the defense against the roaches. And, well, Reynor so far is looking to set up into a big roach all-in with 1-1 missile on the way. Still no Baneling Nest, no Infestation Pit, trying to kind of sneak in there, get a high technology before Clem punches you. None of that's happening, so well, a lot of gases. I don't feel good for Reynor. I don't feel good for him. He's lost 17 drones and a queen and an extractor, apparently. All to the harassment units of Clem, the ones that are very much no longer useful, particularly because it is a roach game. Hellions are arguably useful in some form against a ling-based player, but they're really useless in this game. And again, both Banshees lived, so they are going to be so helpful for dealing with the roach push. Now, queens can actually get onto Clem's third base on this map. You can see the creep spread is actually going pretty strong. That's one thing the Hellions weren't doing, I guess, when they were barbecuing up all those drones. They weren't clearing up the creep. If they can, anyway. Not often, can they? But then they can't even try, right? They're all dead. So that is already over halfway. So queens might be on the front line, might be able to help against the Banshees, but that's still DPS, things to consider, as well as Clem just knowing that roaches are the goal here. This is also scouting. He did get into the main base, and he actually did see a very important scout indeed, which is that we do have an Infestation Pit on the way. We do have Medbug Boost on the way. Still no Baneling Nest. But maybe we're actually just going to forgo Banelings entirely. Ling, Roach, Ravager, possibly some Infestors. They certainly are good at buying time. And then Reynor might try and go into that hive and just play this game out. Try and extend the game as long as possible so the first 6 minutes that were basically a disaster matter less and less and less. Could happen. Seen it happen. This is now, I mean, everything has really been on Clem to ensure victory, right? Like, he has definitely gotten the lead, and he just can't let it go. So, ways he could have let it go. He could have not been ready for a potential all-in from the roaches, but he was. He could have not been ready for a 1-1 roach all-in from the roaches, which is absolutely what he's been wary of in this game. That's why he went to tanks. That's why initially he was defending. But then once he scouted that his opponent was going into an infestation pit, he is going to pile on a little bit more of that pressure, because the other way that he could lose his lead in this game is to play too defensive. Basically, just say, I'm so scared of a roach push, I'm so scared of this guy trying to kill me because I do have a lead, that I'm just never going to take a fourth base and I'm never going to move out. That would have been a disaster. And something that I think Dark, in particular, is really good at making the Terran second guess. Dark will add on the Infestation Pit, add on the Baneling Nest, but then won't go into the Hive. Will go for the Roach as well, and you're just like, well, that stop. No. Hello? But Reynor, I think, is a little more predictable, which is Dark is a very special character. And so Clem has read this as well as possible. His drops have done damage, they've done scouting. His pushes, very intimidating, as you can see now that 2-2 is also finishing. It's going to be an upgrade lead for the Terran. Banshee is helping to take care of a Ling run by, which is actually pretty good, but it's not going to make up for the damage that Reynor is now taking as the drop continues to find drones. The push has yet to actually be pushed back, and Reynor is reinforcing with very, very basic roaches. 1-1 roaches against 2-2 Marines with a tank anchoring, Widow Mines being added on. It might actually seem a little funny because we're still on a mostly roach army, but makes sense for what Clem presumes is going to be a transition into more Ling and Baneling focus. But we're never going to get there. The Baneling Nest was made, still no Baneling speed on the way, no Banelings made, and all the Lings just sacrificed themselves in the run-by that did not do equivalent damage, as 18 drones at this point have now gone down. Finally, the tank gets taken down at the very least, and Reynor can securely mine from his 4th, but again, small potatoes in the grand scheme of things. Reynor is on 5 bases, 81 drones, despite all of the drone deaths in this 10.5-minute game, but Clem is also just working wonderfully back on the macro, back at home. He is on 5 bases now as I speak, 3-3 starts up at the same time. I talked to him about the armor coming down first, by the way, guys, so if he starts getting his upgrades at the same time, give me to think. You're welcome. But anyway, he's obviously doing very well, and the lurker transition that could possibly come into effect will probably come in too late, as Reynor is once again being bullied by still a mostly Marine army. Their upgrades are pretty freaking good. Carapace will finally finish for the Roaches, which will help out a lot. And we have Banshees also free firing here. Widowmines popping off. Some last second splits mitigating that, but the Banshees are taking down almost every single Queen. Spore Crawler will position, and the Banshees will not reign supreme, but they are annoying. And more drones going down as well. Obviously a spot on the Hydra production, which has given Clem further indications of what this is really moving into, which is probably 100% lurkers. Lurkers to try and change up the way that this dynamic has unfolded so far. It's just that while lurkers do change the engagement style, Clem is already working on his own change as far as engagement styles go. He does have a Ghost Academy. He could add in Ghosts, and so lurkers won't be the intimidating factor that they could be against someone who is still purely bio, purely Marine Marauder. Reynor really is giving it his all to play out this game, despite how horrible it started for him. And good on him. Hard Lead's also a map in which if Clem is a little overzealous, doesn't take into account Reynor's tenacity, then maybe he loses a battle and then he gets immediately counterattacked. And if there are 10 lurkers in that counterattack, that can be devastating. There's not enough ghosts yet to deal with that. So you don't want to count out Reynor entirely, but I think Clem's doing a really good job not counting out Reynor. He's taking this cautiously. He's not over-investing into the attacks. This one getting a little overeager, but he pulls back into the Widowmine field. Still keeping Reynor on 5 bases, so Reynor's really looking for the most resource-efficient army possible, which is lurkers, but might not be when ghosts get on the front line. So that is absolutely a problem that will eventually rear its head, as Clem is now happily on 6 bases with planetaries, extra orbitals coming down for also extra scans, which would be useful, and still going into his drops. Reynor has managed to add on a decent amount of lurkers, but still not enough to truly cover each other. As you can see, once the concave comes down, 2 lurkers certainly will not cut it, especially as there was a ghost there. Patriot looks like it's going to fall. We do have a Roach run-by. Reynor trying to get rid of his now useless supply, but in a very efficient manner. Doesn't really do so efficiently. This really didn't do a whole lot of damage, and he is just losing units all over the place anyway. So the ideal would be to have those Roaches buy a lot more time, do a lot more damage, and they get replaced with Hydras and Lurkers. But that's not what's really happening here. In fact, Reynor now having a severe gas problem, can't really afford to make too many Hydras or Lurkers. I mean, he's actually very close to not being able to afford Roaches. Lings coming in, possibly because of that, but also because they are a good addition. If they can get a surround, maybe things can turn around. Surround, plus the Hydras jump on top of these weakened medevacs. Maybe we see a couple of spellcasters, actually. Reynor still has yet to add on any Infestors or any Vipers. Now, obviously, gas is very much necessary for those 2 things, but I think the gas he has now could afford 2, and those 2 actually could be very helpful. But he's focusing on a lot of different things right now, one of them being defending and keeping alive, the other one being a Nidus Worm in Clem's main base, something that Clem did not see, and this is actually one of the most brazen Nidus Worms you're ever going to see. That Overseer is just like law in the middle of the base. Nidus Worm is going to cause some damage here. Clem forced to evacuate from the front line of his opponent too, as he cannot breach the amount of lurkers. And this is going to buy Reynor some time. It's actually doing some damage too. Killing workers, killing production, healing reinforcements, all good things. This drop on top of the lurkers will be effective enough. It does split the army quite well, but actually Reynor, okay, I can kind of see how doubling down on the Nidus Worm might have been a good call, but unfortunately in this case it was not. Clem's army was too spread out. The lurkers did not get maximum damage, and so reinforcing lurkers that were dead anyway, well, didn't work, and you can see that Reynor just thought that was basically an all-in. And it was. He was dead if that didn't win the game. So GG's, Clem will win game number 1. Basically with the opener. But, yeah, they definitely want to keep in mind how Reynor can win a game like that. And I think Clem did. Map number 2 will be Equilibrium. In the top left, it is Clem. Top right, it is Reynor. In a best of 5, both players do have 2 vetoes for maps, thanks to our 9 map pool. And Clem actually lets this through commonly. So he definitely vetoes Radiset, and I'm not sure what the other veto is. But I'm also not 100% sure what the veto process is. But regardless, it does seem like Clem doesn't mind this map at all, because we see it in a lot of his best ofs. Not his best of 3s, to be fair. He doesn't choose it himself, but he doesn't mind if it gets through. And you can kind of see why, if you think about some of his greatest games. He's struggled on the map, for sure, in some ways, but then there's also really epic games from Clem on this map, in which actually sometimes the distance between bases has helped him more than hurt him. You think of TvZ, you think of the Terran being the aggressor, so a longer map can sometimes make their momentum not gather as much as you would hope, and that's why, you know, history kind of says Terrans avoid those huge maps. But actually, I would say in Katowice, it was 100% why he barely won against Solar in their series, is that Solar didn't quite get the reinforcements over fast enough. Because otherwise, Solar was, I absolutely think, was winning. But that aside, point is, it seems like he's comfortable on this map, but this does give Reynor, hopefully, a good little boost here. Plus, I think Reynor knows very much what went wrong in that last game. He knows how to make comebacks happen. Abso-freaking-lutely. And he was trying his best to do his way of coming back, I suppose. If it was dark, I absolutely 100% think there would have been infestors. But there's multiple ways to try and make comeback happen. And it didn't work, so, you know. But the start was terrible. It was. So Reynor, you know, preferably doesn't have to try and make his comebacks. He just actually has a normal game. And I really cannot overstate how unlucky that drone pull was, I swear. Like, I kind of over-exaggerated saying that's the worst situation I've seen for a pro gamer. It's a bit harsh, but I didn't mean it as in he messed up. I meant it as in unlucky. Like, a mess up on the side of the guy, sure, but then also unlucky, because you just don't see that. With a fast reaction and a quick pull away and a quick split, which he did, usually you mitigate that Hellion damage down to, like, 4 drones killed. But those drones really dicked Reynor over. They're like, we're gonna perfectly line up so they kill 9 of us. Like, I just don't think that happens. That happens once in every 50 games something for Reynor when that same situation arises. I'm sticking with that, okay? Obviously, Reynor has had plenty of games in which he does lose drones to Hellion run-bys, but usually it's more of like a strategic thing. You know, he goes for a later speed, Clem picks up on it, goes for a heavier dive style of Hellion pressure. Okay, you got me. You know, you punished my later speed. All right, cool. And he didn't have speed at all in that last game, of course. Which is exactly what Clem punished. But then also, you know, okay, I was very much almost on point of the evolution chamber block, and then I barely didn't get it. C'est la vie. My queens were off of creep temporarily and barely couldn't get arrived. Like, it's usually a lot closer. Other varieties of games in which the drone damage is that big. But certainly one thing impacting it was the later speed, which we again have later speed. This is not uncommon, but the fastest speed you can get is more like 340, and so I don't think it would have mattered because we don't have any lings. Clem, once again, thinking that he has an opportunity with his first few units, finds that opportunity. The evolution chamber block did not work, but this time around the drones actually split and were able to run away. And now speed is done with a handful of lings, so the follow-up Hellions are not nearly as devastating. So that's more what you see. That's 100% more like what you see when someone doesn't have speedlings on the field, and you're like, well, okay, you should probably get some type of damage done. Not the 9 drones in last game. And for only 1 Hellion. One of them evacuated. Insane. So much better game so far for Reynor. That's what I'm trying to get at. And obviously a different game as well, as he did opt in for speed immediately. 3cc for Clem is no big surprise. This is his bread and butter. And now that he's seen speed actually finish, he still has to be wary of a Roach addition, of course, but he might go ahead and just immediately go into Widow Mines, which is his favorite way of playing. 5 Hellions still in the field, good enough for map control. Liberator headed to the very north side, of which, Reynor doesn't actually have any scouting. The overlords he has currently giving him vision of the Hellion presence more so. Nothing to actually look for a drop, or in this case, Liberator, and just relying on his ability to react. A little late, actually, for Reynor's tippity-top standards, I would say, but this is also Clem making sure that he is somewhat distracted with the Hellions. So Reynor loses a drone. I mean, I'm being heavily critical, but I'm just saying, if Reynor is 100% on point, we see him pull before that drone does. The 4th base was a greater necessity for him. He ensured the drone got on location, was actually able to build the hatchery, and the Hellions, well, now relegated to just kind of clearing up the creep spread, which is something. Better than nothing. And the Liberator is trying its best to try to evacuate. It could just chill there forever, though. That's plenty of dead space, and unlikely to see a Spire. That is reserved for only a few Zerg players to begin with, and then usually only on Rataset Station. Although Lambo's definitely been more experimental with mutas. Reynor, not so much. Scan of the Natural, very, very safe from Clem there. Wants to ensure that he is finding a Baneling nest, basically. Not a Roach Warren, for instance, or Roaches popping, or more army popping, and he sees drones, he sees 2 evolution chambers, sees a Baneling nest. That's quite a good scan. Drones trying to get to the gold base. We're a little unguarded, Okay, alright though, we're good. Second factor on the way for Clem, as he does immediately go into those Widow Mines, really confirmed with the scout, but I think he was already producing them. 3cc setup is beautiful, and his upgrades are faster than Reynor's. Actually quite a bit faster, as his 2 drops head over the entire Ling army. They are headed into the main base, where the Liberator also came back into effect. If the entirety of the, 14 Marines drop out, get into a corner, these Lings are not going to have a very good time, man. And this is dangerously close to having that happen. Into the corner they go. Widow Mine might do more friendly fire, though, so that was something to worry about. Last second split from Reynor doesn't really stop that Widow Mine from doing a decent amount of damage, and the Banelings coming in single file. Obviously, Clem going to take any opportunity to focus fire them down. Clearly a hold from Reynor in his main base, but he still lost 6 drones and still has to worry about further engagements. One really important thing is that the last time these guys played in an open cup, Reynor was showing a lot of 60-ish drone mass Ling Baneling attacks, just kind of hammering Clem and hoping to find the momentum, and it worked. It actually worked consistently. I was kind of bewildered because Clem really seemed to have a weakness to it, which I didn't expect, but absolutely 100% not this game. Something that Clem probably was also very attentive to, as far as scouting for how many drones have been produced, where they're transferring, all that good stuff. But definitely not this game, because Reynor is 74 drones, 5 bases, and is trying to get 2 Hydralisks. Trying to, though. Also trying to make sure he stops taking damage, but it is tough against Clem. Who, by the way, actually forgot his combat shields. Oh, and forgets to pick up these units. All right. So Clem making some of his own mistakes. Reynor is probably now comfortable, actually. He's stopped at least one form of aggression. So the south side of the map seems like it's perfectly A-okay. No longer having to worry about that. It is the north side with the drop in the main and now the push through the top that Reynor really has to worry about. So Reynor is in position. Widow Mine's getting on the front lines. There's a decent number of them, and it is kind of scary. Last second split on the Widow Mines actually there from Clem was nice, but even more Widow Mines behind his Marines. And they are all going to burrow up here. Drilling Claws wasn't quite done, so that wasn't the perfect moment. Reynor does hold, and Clem not finding any success in the main base any longer, thanks to the 2 Spore Crawlers. 3 Spore Crawlers, actually. The double drop hardly doing anything. Clem, oh boy, just trying to get sneaky deaky. Evacuating, quote-unquote, but not actually, which a lot of Zergs have absolutely picked up on. They will chase after a little bit more, figuring that Clem is unloaded near them, and then Clem, yeah, is caught by surprise occasionally. There's also a lot of faster burrow and baneling bombs against Clem, because he has been found to also over-chase, trying to get revenge for some engagements. Nothing that we've seen here, actually. We have not seen that faster burrow banelings. We might see some, as burrow is on the way, but just not yet. Widow Mine's gonna pop off really well, actually. Both of them are great, but the second one took down all but one Baneling. Clearly, Clem will focus fire that, and Reynor has to evacuate, so that base is going to get sniped. Okay, good cancel. And Fantastic cancel, actually, but only one Baneling left over. That's not going to be enough. More Lings piling through here. Upgrades are even. And the Queens were there to help take down the Medivacs, but Clem is finding some value on this drop. More Banelings coming through, however, means this is going to be the end of it. Finally, a Medivac also going down, but Clem's on 4 bases back at home. 5th base being built. Another drop to the north that still can threaten the main, despite the attempted turret ring, basically. You have like a spore ring right here. It's still something to worry about. And of course, Clem is starting to move over into Ghost as well. But one thing that he was not good about was getting his upgrades. So he was late to those combat shields, kind of sucked. And then he was really late to his 2-2. Remember, he was ahead by like a full minute compared to the 1-1 of his opponent. And now Reynor's 2-2 is going to finish, while Clem's is only halfway done. So that was just a mistake there from Clem. Once again, taking some value trades over in the middle of the map, while also pushing through the middle of the map. So there is that, but it should have been with 2-2. Very unfortunate. 5th base will take as the gold for Clem, as Reynor continues to expand to his 6th, finally up and running, or close to it. And a Hive is now on the way for Reynor. Clearly a better game for the Zerg. Oh, there's the Burrowed Baneling. I didn't even pay attention. Didn't kill a mass amount of Marines, but still pretty good, and something that Clem will now have to be wary of going into the future. He does not have those extra orbitals for mass scans. Not yet, anyway. But he'll have to be wary of them, so no more mule drops for you, buddy. More command centers are on the way. Planetary getting set up on his gold. He will be fine defensively, as Reynor actually feels emboldened to move out in the map, to chase after a little bit. Not sure how much he can really get away with it, though. That is a large Terran force. Both players maxed out. Both players getting to that late-game technology. Reynor's creep spread to the south, also pretty freaking good. Still missing in some of the avenues, I suppose, but we'll get there. His queen count is hefty enough at 11. And you should have plenty of injects. Plenty of creep spread, plenty of transfuses as well. I even get rid of some of the queens intentionally at some point, actually, but we'll get there when we get there. We have an Infestor being added on. Oh, as a Woodamine gets a fantastic shot off of creep. I don't think Reynor really wants to take this engagement. Now with that first Woodamine getting a fantastic shot, Clem totally prepared for the engagement as well. Now clearing up the creep spread that was decent. Now it's kind of mediocre every which way we look for Reynor. No base there to punish as of yet, so Clem not going to overstep here. Just gonna wait for this creep to dissipate eventually. Also has 2 armies. The one on the north a little smaller, however, and Reynor is totally prepared for it. Once again, burrowed banelings, and boom! Takes down every single Marine. More Infestors being added on. Love to see it. 3-3 starts up faster for the Zerg player than Clem, who also right now is not getting his armor. But at least that is the preferable one to forget, if you had to forget something. Nidusworm is on the way for Reynor. Obviously, that could be a killing blow. Sensor tower, missile turrets, Viking. Clem wants to make sure he does not get bopped by a Nidusworm. He is very aware of the possibility, but you can't really stop the Nidusworm from getting slapped down. You can just stop it from being so relentless, I suppose. Very quick answer right there. Reynor's remembered cracklings, which actually was kind of a weird common problem between the Zerg players for a hot second. But we do have Juno Glands on the way. 3-3, lurker upgrades. The possibility of lurkers is now here. Less so that he's dependent on them. Because last game he was pretty dependent on them and they didn't work out. Oh, the Burrow Infestors! Woo! It's actually very fortunate what happened. I'll explain in a second, but we do have Clem able to evacuate back home, back to his reinforcements, and now this engagement is entirely off of creep, which I'm actually kind of surprised that Reynor's sticking with. Clearly not making big connections, but also, I guess, looking for a distraction as the Nidusworm pops up in the natural. And oh, Burrow Banelings. Oh no, Clem was caught chasing again. Oh, this is something that the Zerg players have really picked up on very well indeed, and they have punished Clem repeatedly for it. Planetary will take some Banelings to actually get taken down, but indeed it does. And with the army entirely out of position, those Banelings were 100% worth the sacrifice. I do know we have like frame drops going on, which is annoying, but not much I can do about it. But what I was going to say is that the Infestors actually could have been a game over moment, but Clem scanned the army and it had a burrowed Infestor, so he went, oh shit, burrowed Infestors, and then he scanned on his army, which is why he killed the Infestor behind them before he could get a fungal, so as I said, it's kind of fortunate. But that's, again, something that I'll constantly have to be worried about. Clem barely hanging on right now. Reynor certainly taking the reins of this particular game. Big bank, big army, taking down 2 bases now, and the behind fungal finally hits. Clem is, well, probably a goner at this point. Reduced back down to 4 bases, reducing his army supply, and now desperate to hold on with his last planetary. That ain't going to hold. Clem Well, caught doing a couple of things incorrectly, I guess. And you could blame the fungals as much as you wanted, but that really wasn't the start, I think, of the death of Clem. It was the finisher, that's for sure. But the start, I would say, was maybe even the upgrades. The upgrades were lacking. He forgot about them for a long time. Then, it was over-aggressing. He tried to chase, and that was... I didn't catch the big Baneling Bomb, but I assure you that the supply definitely dipped. So I'm thinking like 20 supply got killed by a Baneling Bomb, because he was chasing. I had just gone over how much the Zerg players have really picked up on that. So sometimes they were getting faster burrow than what Reynor got there, but when they do get burrow, they're very attentive to it. And it is Clem's instinct to run after a Zerg army once he retreats, because it's usually good. It's usually value. We spawn into Site Delta for Game 3. Bottom right, it is Basilisk's Reynor. Top left, it is Team Liquid's Clem. First game, Clem really got super far ahead with some drone damage. But that was really most of it. Reynor, in the second game, stopped the damage from happening. Really reduced it down to kind of an acceptable, sort of typical amount of damage. But also just played out the rest of the game very well, and he made sure to defend all of the harassment, and then I think really got into a powerful state when, one, his upgrades were better, because Clem did mess up, but then also, two, got those spellcasters included in it. Really felt like Reynor, one, had control over the game, but then two, had so much control over the game that he was really able to think, okay, this is exactly what I want to do. I want to do this, and then add this, and then get that. Where obviously the games in which you are starting from behind, you always feel like you're scrambling to catch up, so you're not able to kind of be one step ahead of your opponent. They're always one step ahead of you. In that last game, he was certainly one step ahead. He got his economy, he got his army, and then he got his spellcasters and his positioning for his burrowed banelings, which really seem to be the two big problems right now for Clem. I would say for him, it is the burrowed banelings and the infestors. For Terrans in general, it does seem like the infestors are the biggest issue. And so much so that we're actually even getting, maybe some complaints about them. Personally, we see them so infrequently that I do wonder if they are overpowered. Or if it is just a case of one player being freaking good. Freaking good. Because I know Reynor is very capable of being as good or even better than Cyril, depending on his form. I really think that Reynor at his absolute peak form might be better, but it's very difficult for you to be in 100% peak form all the time, or even the time when you really need it. Just the difficulty of competition. But anyway, he does not seem to get the same situation happen as commonly as Cyril does. I mean, Cyril seems to always have that infestor ready to go from some way you're not looking. Just outside of scan range or something. So, I'm not going to say it's overpowered yet, but I do think that the burrow infestor into fungal, I can't burrow fungal anymore, definitely seems to be the best tool for Zerg players in that late game. They're just able to shark around and put themselves into such important positions. We'll see if Clem is forced to even get to that point. Ideally for him, he wins in the mid-game. Cuts all that crap out of the... the possibilities. But look at this. Reynor actually going 2-base lair. Wait, what? There's no way he 2-base Spires, right? That's insane. 2-base Spire is actually kind of just a bad build. Is it a good build against Pure Hellion Banshee? I would still say no, actually. Alright, it's going to be very interesting. Clem, obviously, not going to be expecting this. He has scouted his opponent's very normal opener thus far, even has speed included, but has yet to scout the lack of third hatchery, and will not scout that layer too easily, you would expect. But once they see the third hatchery is only just now building, alarm bells will be ringing. It is 2-base Spire. Wow. I mean, that was the only thing it really could be, but I'm still shocked by it. Because when I say it's a bad build, I mean, that does seem to be the consensus. Like, there's a reason that no one does this anymore. If they do go into Spire, it's usually on a bigger map as well, and then also off of 3 bases, maybe even 4 bases, actually. As you're getting to your 4th. So, to do it on one of the shorter maps, more direct maps, and then to do the 2-base version, I mean, that is an insane change-up. But it is so insane, it might just work. As I said, Clem should be very wary of something happening here. That 3rd hatch is so late, unless he thinks it's the 4th. No, there's no way. No. But, I mean, he's definitely not scanning. You know, he's not trying to figure out what it is. He might already figure it out and just know the timing and the power spike of it so well that he's not worried. In which case, kudos. But I would be worried. I'd be... Because obviously the earlier the mutas come out, the less anti-air you have. It's just logical. But then you also don't have a real intimidating force of mutas either, so... You know, it's not like you arrive with 20 mutas and there's 2 marines. That would be pretty overpowered. You arrive with 6 mutas against, 4 marines, but also maybe some missile turrets, ideally. Which definitely should be coming down now that the Spire has been officially scouted and the engineering bays are done as well. I mean, as I said, I think Clem could only really reduce the options down to this build. There should have been some fear as well about maybe a 2-base Nidus Worm, but then I guess that already would have hit, right? Oh, the Hellions actually sacrificing themselves here. That's not going to turn out well. Only 5 drones go down. Now, Reynor has limited economy to begin with, so I guess 5 drones seems like a lot, but keep in mind that those Hellions were going to be useful for the defense as well. It's not just the mutas. If the Lings come across with the mutas and those Marines get surrounded, those Marines are dead. And that supply depot is still down. It's very worrisome. I'm having a lot of anxiety. I need a Tums. Oh my god, he did it. Oh my god, that's exactly what I was talking about. Oh my god, why? SCVs absolutely have to be pulled. And, he'll be okay, I guess. But oh my god, oh Jesus, this is still so scary. He killed 1 muta, almost killed a 2nd, but not quite. And Link get back into the main base, or Nashville, rather. SCV pull is pretty effective against such a limited number of units, so it will work out. And the barracks are up and running. 3 of them with their add-ons. 4th and 5th almost there as well. So I guess that's what Clem's really thinking that he's A-okay with. But this is a razor-thin edge. This is... If those Lings actually surrounded the Marines and then the SCVs got pulled, those Marines are all dead. The SCVs have like 2 Marines helping them. It's not good looking. But Clem, I mean, he is the master. There's a reason he's so freaking good. And even though this is a very uncommon build these days, he seems to have read it and reacted absolutely perfectly. I was anxious for no reason. But I really felt like a mom watching like a stunt festival or something. It's like, what? My son does this for a living. But every single time I see him go over the hill, I'm gonna fucking be terrified. Anyway. Mutas will control the map a little while longer, but there is now a point in which the Zerg player is on a razor-thin edge. And that is the point in which they have to transition over into Banelings and not die. Mutas and Lings do not become a main fighting force after their initial appearance here, right? They are harassers, they're run-buyers, they're distractors. Ooh boy. Internet problems. And so you need to get to those Banelings, and you need a decent amount of creep spread. The good news is creep spread's pretty much a given, because even if the Hellions didn't sacrifice themselves, they're not going out on the map, right? So the creep spread's a given, but the Banelings and the amount of Banelings and the fact that they don't have speed, that is the big question. So if Clem can read this perfectly, read the tea leaves perfectly, and hit exactly when Reynor isn't quite prepared, then Reynor really isn't prepared. And it can snowball very quickly into a Terran win. 1-1's already done for the Terran, as Reynor's still working on his. Obviously, that's going to be a natural deficit to this build. All your technology, all your gas going into the mutas. 14 of them, not too shabby, with +1 flyer already, working on +2. That is not a small chunk of change, honestly, for a game that is still as close as this. Reynor is now on the ropes officially. He is not able to keep up with the multi-pronged attack so far. The mutas are entirely on the defensive. Clem feels very safe and comfortable back on 3 bases, building to a 4th. He does have his superior upgrades, as you should, and he's looking to kill as many Banelings as possible before that speed is done. Oh, the One-of-Mine helps out as well. Thank you very much. And this is... to get over this hump of this build for the Zerg player is so insanely difficult. Oh, excellent save. Oh, the Baneling snipes. Oh my god. Actually, a couple did hit. I think he just didn't see them. I didn't see them either, actually. But we did see acid, so I assume Clem got bopped by a couple of Banelings, but he just killed 2 bases. He killed the third, or the 4th actually, and then he killed a 5th. Yeah. So the 3rd base is still up and running, but this is clearly not enough. Meter count has been reduced down to 10. That particular portion is why 2 base Muta, I think in particular, isn't done, but even like a more general Muta build isn't done. It's just a very difficult style of play against Terrans nowadays. Maybe a different map, it's okay, sure, but I would say just generally, it's Terrans reading the situation so much better and having so much better control as well. And yeah, not enough Banelings actually. There's plenty more Marines. Banelings are finishing up, and that will hold the line and Jesus, for a little while. The last second split into those Widow Mines. And Clem is going to come back onto Reynor's 3rd base, actually, by the looks of things. Now, Clem has taken some SCV damage, but he really doesn't care. 10 SCVs as he has 4 bases. He's not going to make up here for the damage that Reynor has taken. Clem with a 2-1 lead. Map number 4 will be Solaris. In the top right, you do have Team Liquid's Clem. And on the bottom left, we have Basilisk's Reynor. Reynor tried a very different build. I think he was, if I have to guess, you know, it's that he thought doing such a kind of wild build nowadays, honestly, would really shock and awe a player who is 100% going to go into Hellion, either Banshee or Liberator. This is what Clem does. Sometimes he mixes it up and goes for 2 racks. That's true, but, you know, it's kind of rare, actually, nowadays. And I don't think he does it on that map very commonly, either. So for someone who's going to open up Hellions and no anti-air, that's the typical Terran opener, and you catch them by surprise, that they continue not to have anti-air. I can see how that could, like, theoretically work out, but we saw what happens in the actual physical game. Even if Clem hadn't dived the Hellions, because if you're like, oh, the Hellions bought some time and did damage to an already reduced economy, even if you want to make that argument, because you're very, like, Zerg-sided, the Hellions still would have helped. The Hellions would have been back home and made sure that the SCVs never had to be pulled. The Marine count was high enough, and the Hellion count would have been there. Combine those 2 together, and I don't think Clem has to worry. I do not believe that there was enough of a time opening. You know, there was enough of an opening in which the Muta count would have overwhelmed the Marine count without the Lings helping. So, whether it was the SCV pool that helped against the Lings or the Hellions against the Lings, the point is, like, I just don't think that Hellion Russian actually had much impact. Clearly, Clem still was totally okay, even after losing his additional ground forces, to the point in which he correctly called that he could keep a supply depot down. Which is just insane to me. But I'm much worse than him. So, there's that. One thing I do want to note, by the way, I have not been noting here, but SCV Scout, I think every single game, or almost every single game, I have seen this SCV patrolling there a few times. So Clem, probably just really feeling it today. Probably knows that he's in pretty freaking good form, so he's saying, I just don't want to die to anything sneaky. Reynor obviously got a macro game, but on a map that is considered Zerg favored, and oh, Jesus. Yeah, Clem just thinks that it's worth the SCV. I actually really like the SCV in this matchup. For pros, the lack of mining is really considerable. It messes with their build order. It is a sacrifice of certain extent. For us plebs, it doesn't make a freaking difference, but it can block out a hatchery. And then you can force the Zerg player to take the more uncomfortable 3rd hatchery. One that they probably won't die because they take it, but it's still more uncomfortable for them. But I actually kind of like it. Thank you, Honor Jorans, for the 29 months. While we watch Clem once again go into a 3cc Hellion and then either Banshee or Liberator opener. Reynor has gone into speed once again, but, you know, later, a more macro-focused opener. And Clem is going to be able to scout that, actually. As the Reaper hops into the main base, he's going to get full scouting. He sees speed, still researching, which, to be fair, it actually it could be finishing right now, for all he knows. It could be finishing in the next 2 seconds. But it's not. It's like 10 seconds. But he gets in, he sees it, he sees the gas still mining, he sees the Ling still without speed. And he is going to skedaddle with the Reaper. No dive into the natural this time around with these Hellions. Queens do have a better chance at blocking a choke on this map. So they would have just blocked themselves there. But obviously, as the Hellion count continues to grow, you can kind of force the issue up this ramp, for instance. If you want to gamble that Reynor doesn't have enough Lings. Reynor's building 6 more on top of 6. I think that's pretty much enough to ensure the Hellions won't get good enough shots. Clem is going into a Liberator, very like non-committal opener, I suppose. Going more so into the, well, let's get to the Marines. Let's get to the Marines, let's get to the Wood Mines. And that's where Clem is most powerful. Reynor having taken no damage, just a cancelled building so far. It's a perfect game for both of them. 8 Hellions will be the choice here for Clem. So a couple more than the typical 6. A little more firepower and a little more possibility of killing queens. There you go. 1 queen goes down, 1 Hellion falls, but now a 2nd queen's gonna fall as well, and this is absolutely worth it, 100%. The Ling's also realizing they can't actually deal with this without more support. Now they're gonna be on a choke as well. Another queen will fall. No transfuses for her. Ling's body block to save the queen. But it was only temporary. They at least helped trade out a little bit more, but now Clem even thinking that maybe more Lings aren't on the way. Is looking to get into the drone line. More Lings are on the way, but either way you slice it, not a good situation for Reynor. He lost queens, he lost Lings, he had to make more Lings, which means he wasn't making drones. So no matter how you slice that, Clem's pretty happy with how that went down. 4 queens died, actually. I think 1 died to a Liberator, maybe. Right? Because I thought I could have sworn it was 3 on the front, but either way, the Liberator did go down. It might have gotten some damage done. And these 2 Hellions and a Reaper still being annoying as well. Behind this, Clem happily moving over into his production. 3rd CC on location. Did not really miss a lot of beats in his macro while doing all of that micro. Reynor starts up his own 1-1. It's really not that far behind compared to his opponent, but clearly his tempo has been thrown off here. More queens popping out, having to be produced. His in-checks probably not really missed too much, but certainly less energy overall. Less transfuses to maybe help out with the follow-up 2 medevacs that 100% are on the way. Well, these queens at least all have 1 transfuse by the looks of things. Enough to buy time, at the very least, and actually perfectly positioned as well. Get a first shot off on the medevac. Clem can't find much, and also is being distracted. Getting run by, trying to find some damage. Nice control there from Clem on his very, reduced number of Hellion Reapers. But good enough. 3 SCVs will go down. Another queen falls, but a little tit for tat in that situation, for sure. Basically an even trade, 150 minerals either way. 4th CC on the way, showing the real intent here of Clem, who almost never 8 Raxes anyway. It's hardly even worth mentioning. He's already grabbing a Viking, which is actually kind of funny, I would say. This Viking we've seen from Clem will come out against like Nidus Worm shenanigans, for sure, but minute 10, minute 12, something like that. By going for a Viking this early on, he is impacting his medevac count. Like, straight up, you would usually be trying to pump out up to at least 6 medevacs, I would suspect, before adding anything else. Yeah, at least 4. At least 4. Well, that Viking comes out first and foremost. It seems very intentional. No Overlords to kill, though. Reynor's not being too aggressive with them. Doesn't have Overlord speed either. We might see more Overlords move out on the map once that happens. But yeah, interesting choice for the Viking. A little lacking on the creeps right over here, and oh, the Wood Mine helps take down the reinforced Bantleys, but oh, Jesus, they still make the connections. The Wood Mine friendly fires the medevac a little bit too. Could have been way worse, I guess, for both sides. Both of them just breathing a sigh of relief. Wood Mine didn't kill all the Terran, didn't kill all the Zerg. They both can agree that Wood Mines are terrifying, and then they leave each other alone. And Reynor is really well set up in this game. I mean, his macro is despite the queen hubbub, it looks like it never happened. He's taken over the map with creep spread. He's taken over the map with bases. He's taken over the map with drones. I know Clem still has a supply lead, but to actually get that supply lead to deliver some type of real killing blow, that is usually the trick to it. I don't think it's going to happen. There's a lot of room for Reynor to work with As he grabs it. Another base. He will be on 6 bases. Wait. Yeah, 6 bases, obviously with the rich Vespian gas. A little opposition to defend this particular attack, but Lings and Banelings not too far away. They are wary of Widow Mines, so last second split, but that was unfortunately a split that opened up the opportunity for the Marines to focus fire. Oh my god, he does it. He does the thing. The focus fire is so good, and the Marines are gonna do the thing of the Marines. The stutter step. The killing of the Zerg. It's happening. It's happening, guys. Only 5 Banelings left over. Holy shit, though. That medevac was very low, and it did die. Still, Clem has found his moment. He has killed a base. He has killed a building base. Reynor was not quick enough to the cancel, and Reynor has lost all of the confidence that I thought he was building. I thought he had. I was like, yeah, Reynor's probably just gonna, you know, get to the late game. It's fine, man. No, it isn't. Failing focus fire. Hell of a drug. Clem also on point with his upgrades 2-2, whereas Reynor was a little later to his +2 melee. At least the carapace is most important for the Zerg here. Gonna rebuild his bases, and on 90 drones, I mean, he is going to get back to a very powerful economy once these hatcheries finish, but it's just a problem with actually finishing those damn hatcheries. So many drones, long distance mining, more Marines on the front line without Banelings here to help cover those queens. Banelings are coming around, Lings and Hydras as well, but that is most of Clem's army. Kind of a scary situation. Successful defense of the hatchery. No hatchery built down to the south, so Clem's just going to run up the gut, right into the natural. Get on top of the reinforcements, possibly on top of that +2 melee. The main army was pushed back entirely, actually forced to flee and evacuate in the medevac, but that +2 melee is a goner. Second evolution chamber also going to fall by the looks of things. Yes, indeed it will. Plenty of time to pick up as well before the Hydras get over here. The Hydras, by the way, have speed, but they do not have their range, so that's affecting their ability to snipe some of these last-second medevac snipes. More bases on the way for Clem, by the way. He's now playing the role of the Zerg, taking bases on location and taking many of them at once. +3 starts up for the attack for Clem, and he's rolling, man. He is rolling. This is the height of Clem right here. He's got Marauders to tank on the front line. He's got the Marines off of creep to help to take care of things. At least the evacuation should be good off of creep. And Reynor is just pretty much, I'd almost call this like desperately trying to catch a moment in which Clem has not reinforced correctly, but their reinforcements are right there. Still with a army of units to the south as well, and again, so many bases for the Terran, whereas Reynor is barely holding on to the top base, the rich Vespian geyser base. No evolution chambers, by the way, so Reynor still very running behind on the upgrades even further. Widowmine splashing every which way. Now this army is deep onto creep. Last second split is going to help, but the skedaddling must happen. At the same time as the lift on the attack, we have the drop, run by, whatever you want to call it, going back into the natural, this time finding the hatchery. And Reynor is going to be able to replace that, but still, the big distraction, the loss of mining, all things don't feel so good. So Reynor is on his last life as well. But I'm really hoping to find that one moment in which he actually effectively wins the game right here, but this little bit of creep spread that has stayed pretty consistent is really helping out Reynor. There's like creep tumors to the right and to the left that haven't been killed that are affecting this just a little bit. But it feels like it's almost a matter of time before Clem actually finds the actual killing blow. Banelings once again chasing after, hoping to find Clem without enough reinforcements, hoping to find him unloading into the attack, but not going to happen. And Clem now with 2-2 versus just, again, that 2-1. It's going to continue just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Something has got to stop that from happening, and that something might be a Nidus Worm, but Clem is on top of it. More reinforcements, however, need to pop, and the timing is not working in favor of our Terran right now. Only Widowmine's popping out. That's not going to really help out against the Lurkers, and a decent amount of Lurkers at that. 7 of them coming through here. On top of that production, that was just the perfect timing. That was literally the perfect timing. If these 3 Marauders had popped while the Nidus Worm was building, that thing doesn't get up. But I think he was also like maxed out for a hot second, so this has actually turned the tides quite a bit. Clem now forced to completely flee. Back to home he goes, and he drops on top of the Lurkers, clears up the Nidus Worm, but Reynor also taking advantage of the now out of position Terran army. They jump on top of the third base, kill maybe a factory, kill a ton of SCVs, but he won't actually get to that command center. Reinforcing Nidus Worm on the front lines, or evacuation Nidus Worm, either one is a pretty freaking good idea, as a lot of these Lurkers are still alive. Only one ghost in the mix. Clem suddenly on the ropes himself. Oh, big splash from the Lurkers right there. and still dealing with Nidus Worms elsewhere. Nidus Worm in the natural happened. He took care of that, but he's still having to take care of the freaking Overseer. Orbital Command actually is going to fall. The factory fell too, and Clem is now suddenly in a position that he just did not think he was going to be in. That Nidus Worm changing everything, but Reynor is the one that is still lower on the income. Oh no, he actually does have an income because he took the space finally, yes! Alright, he's actually got his 88 drones mining successfully. He is winning on the income, he's starting to build a little bit of a bank, and he does evacuate with a lot of his slow, very expensive units, the lurkers obviously. And the creep spread has to be touched upon. That is pretty far forward. And Clem does have a lot of bases, so even though he's not beating his opponent in the mineral income, he still has a reliable income to reinforce, and he still has a big army that now is consolidated. Baneling's not making those connections that they needed, and only one Baneling left over, so the Hydras alone will not do the trick. Lurkers alone might not do a trick, actually, as we come in from a full 360 surround attempt at least, but that attempt isn't going to go so well. The army was already injured, no ghost for the snipe, and the Lurkers did so much damage. The Hydra's not able to reinforce at the same time, however, kind of missed the opportunity to potentially get a real killing blow. Because I think that was very close to it. I think you should take that up. Yeah, you can go ahead. Mom trying to give me some sustenance for this potentially long game, but unfortunately my cat is, yeah, she's in a position to actually eat it. I'm not. So anyways, we get back to the game, which is really quite close thanks to that Nidus Worm. Again, those Lurkers, they got so many great shots, and if the Hydras were involved, I wonder if that would have been enough to push it over the edge, but Clem is holding on, despite his production once again being in trouble thanks to now Cracklings in his main base. At least I assume they're Cracklings. No Adrenal Glands. Excuse me. Only +1 melee too, so the Lings are not particularly intimidating. We really have to adjust our expectations for a 16-minute game right now, because we assume those are Cracklings or 3-3, they got Adrenal Glands, they're going to tear through a bunch of production. That is not the case. That also means they're not very effective as far as helping on the front lines. Now, Lings are almost never the go-to, like, only unit, right? It's Banelings, it's Hydras, it's Lurkers. But as far as surrounds, that still is good for them. Then them nibbling on a Marauder is going to be hilarious. Planetary is continuing to hold against the onslaught. Reynor really feeling this potential changeover in the tide, right? He knows that he has finally turned things around. Patience has rewarded him with Lurkers on the offensive, and Clem did not add on Ghosts very quickly at all. So he's only still now trickling them in, and Lurkers are now attacking 2 planetaries, which is actually kind of dividing the DPS, which might not be the best move. But we see that the bottom base is a goner. The rest of the army arrived there, but this middle planetary still is holding strong. 17 SCVs have also gone down, but the Lurkers are finally falling. Attack on the top side did just kill that middle base once again, so Reynor's dipping down in the economy, but so is Clem. He's lost 17 SCVs, he's lost a base, lost 2 bases actually, and he's about to lose another. This planetary not going to hold forever, especially without its additional upgrades, and Reynor has really fought back in this game. He was on the ropes. He was near death. And one Nidus Worm, perfectly timed, forced Clem to evacuate, and then everything went to shit from there. But the really big thing, besides the Nidus Worm timing, which was amazing, is that the Ghost count hadn't been built up yet. If Clem had already moved on to Ghost and had, let's say, 10 of them, yes, he still is forced out of position. Yes, he's still forced to clamor and scramble and panic. But he gets there with confidence, and then all of these subsequent attacks with the Nidus Worm and the Lurkers combined with the rest of the army, and the Ghosts help. The Ghosts take down the Lurkers, which they're now doing. When the Ghosts can take down the Lurkers, the rest of the Bio army can successfully take on the Ling Baneling Hydra. And there was a very crucial ingredient missing, and one that Reynor was eager to take advantage of. So he knows when the iron is hot that he has to strike, and strike he did, but Clem not dead. He's refusing to die as much as Reynor did. Reynor was refusing to die at minute 14, Clem refusing to die at minute 17. Now at 18 minutes, Clem is back in the driving seats. He has killed the middle base of his opponent, he's killed the far left base of his opponent, but those were the bases that had mined the most thus far. 2 medevacs also falling in exchange for this isn't exactly ideal. And Reynor still has the comfort of 2 full bases of mining, although you can see oversaturated because he still has 76 drones. Clem is back onto his 5th base in the middle. It's an orbital on a planetary. He's trying to get a planetary up to the north, which will also be his springboard. But can he actually get there as he is forced to evacuate? This has been the point of contention for most of this game. Clem not quite able to take down Reynor at this particular point, is now weak at that point. If he gets the planetary up, he'll no longer be weak, but right now without the planetary, it's kind of scary. Most of the army now on the side here makes it look a lot better. I guess he was still reinforcing, which means that the other sides of the map might be weak. And after seeing that as an orbital, I mean, yeah, forget about it. That orbital's dead. At the very least, it's not going to mine. We're actually very low on Hydras. We're very low on anti-air, so bases might not die, but they will not mine either. So there's, you know, it's still something. Vikings landing, choosing to, yeah, definitely good choice. Choosing to land, taking the Nidus from, make sure that nothing pops out of it. Nothing was in it, actually. You can see Vikings do not kill buildings very fast at all. Macro Hatchery is going to fall. Nidus Worm is going to fall, so that's finally a thorn out of Clem's side right there, assuming there's not a secondary one, and there is not, but Clem kind of just hoping that's the case. Burrow is out on the way for Reynor, but is it too late? Had he had some burrowed infestors earlier on, could he have gotten the final killing blow? If he had burrowed banelings early on, could he have gotten the killing blow? Possibly. But better late than never. Reynor still on 2 bases mining, but now they're so oversaturated. Jesus. They're also starting to run out of minerals, no doubt about it. Fungal on the top side didn't grab a whole heck of a lot of units. That's not going to be good enough as Reynor's supply is currently in the dumpster. Clem's missing 30 workers, so keep that in mind. His actual army supply is about 60 above his opponent. Reynor almost found the crack in the armor, but despite getting so close to getting the killing blow, it just didn't happen. Clem, resilience. The fact that he had already gotten so far ahead, I think, really is it, but also resilience. Some patience shining through as well for him, not to panic and lose the game to a stupid A move. But because he was so far ahead, he was certainly allowed to take some of those bigger losses and not just straight up die because of it. Ooh, the shark festers, the shark festers, the shark festers, but the rest of the army is already losing! The shark festers will not be nearly as helpful when there's not enough banelings. There's only 1 baneling left over here. The fungal is not going to be good enough. And Clem, at the end of the day, will get that 3-1. But damn, did Reynor almost bring that back. Reynor was this close to bringing it back. If those Hydras are with the lurkers on that ramp, I think that Clem actually loses all of his reinforcements, all of his medevacs, and does get camped on his production. Devastating for the Terran. If Reynor had a burrowed fungal a little earlier on, then maybe some of the army that was moving around trying to catch the multiple points of attack could have been bopped, you know? But as close as it wasn't good enough. Clem, obviously showing up today with his best form, will take down Reynor 3-1 and win another Open Cup, which he does quite a bit.